Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome back to our holiday webcast series. We will begin today to learn and discuss the Hasidic view on the Yom Tov of Rosh Hashana. The last three classes we examined the month of Elul, and today we'll begin a new discourse from the Alter Rebbe again in Likutei Torah, where he discusses the soul of Rosh Hashana and all that is connected with that holiday. Primarily the idea of the Day of Judgment, and also the fact that it is the beginning of the year and it's called the head of the year. So we'll begin and make copies here. We're going to just learn the top part, which is the Alter Rebbe's words itself. The lower part is the comment, the explanation of it. So this discourse is based on the verse that we say in the Rosh Hashana prayers. Tiku Bachodesh Shofar, Bakesel Yom Chagenu, Kechek L'Yisrael Hu Mishpat Lelekei Yaakov. Blow in the month Shofar, Bakesel, when it's covered, L'Yom Chagenu, the day of our festival. Kechek L'Yisrael, it is a statute for Israel. Mishpat Lelekei Yaakov, a judgment to the God of Jacob. Now, what does this verse mean? So let's begin the Alter Rebbe's words. Now, all the months are called the months of the year. Mashenkin Tishrei, but the month of Tishrei, which is the first month, the month of Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur and Sukkot, is Nikra Chodesh Stam. Is not called which month. It's just called Chodesh. Just like that, as it says in the verse, Tiku Bachodesh, blow in the month. Which month? What month? It doesn't say which month. It's called a month, the month. And that's reference. The reference is to the month of Tishrei. Chidush Kloli leKlolos ha'Elamis v'Hasavus ha'Mayin liyesh. Why is it called Chodesh? Just the word. It's called a month. Now the word month in Hebrew is Chodesh, right? The word Chodesh also has another meaning in Hebrew. So if you vowelize it a little different, you can read it as the word Chodosh, right? New. What does Chodosh mean? New. And this is why this month is called Chodesh without any next word. Chodesh Harishon, the first month, or whatever. In this verse it's called Chodesh Stam, just month, because it also it's also meaning a newness. It's a general newness for all the worlds and their creation from nothing into something.
But where are you? I don't see it.
Yeah, on the wrong page.
That's bigger.
It is a general newness for all the worlds and their creation. In other words, all the worlds become new, are renewed on the day of Rosh Hashana. From beginning to end, all the spiritual worlds, the physical world, everything is renewed on this day from nothing into something. It's recreated, a brand new creation. That's why it's called Chodesh Stam. It's a term, the month, because that word also means Chodesh, new. It's renewed. The worlds are renewed generally this day. Shabbat Rosh Hashana, because on that month is Rosh Hashana. In Tishrei is the month of Rosh, is the holiday of Rosh Hashana. Shubichinis Reish Umeichin Shalashana, which is the head and the brain of the year. It's a general question. We know it's called Rosh Hashana, the head of the year. Why is it not called the beginning of the year? Why is it called the head? Because it's like a head. What is in the head? The head is the brain of the whole body. It's the central nervous system of the whole entire organism known as the body. And from the head, everything is included in the head and controlled by the head. All the life force of the whole body is in the brain. The same thing, all the life force of the whole coming year is included, is already sent down, so to say, is already renewed on Rosh Hashanah. It's like the head, and from the head it then spreads out to all the 365 days of the year. It is the head and the brain of the year. Because he says like this, in the world there are three types of realities: Olam, space; Shana, time; and Nefesh, life. Right?
Third dimension that normally in physics we don't have.
Right. Time, space, and life. They're all equal. Just like you have the in life you have the head, in the brain, which is the brain of the human being, right? Which is all the life is first included in the brain, and from there it extends to the whole body, according to its parameters and details and so on. Same thing, kachel ba'olam v'shana. Same thing you have in time and space. Olam b'chinas makim. The word olam refers to space. Shana b'chinas man. Shana is the idea of time. So in time and space you also have a head in the body. What's the head of time? Rosh Hashana. The time is a year. The world is created at a year at a time. Right? And the head of that year is Rosh Hashana. Sheba Rosh Hashana gili klolus achayis. U'memenu nimshach chayis prat l'chol chedesh. Ki kol chedesh is chachus achayis mayin liyesh. Because on Rosh Hashana is the general revelation of the whole life force for the whole year. That's what happens on Rosh Hashana, when a Yid blows the shofar, as we will see soon. And from that day, life is extended to every month. Because every month is called in Hebrew what? Chodesh. Again, it's called Chodesh. The word Chodesh is related to the word Chodesh. Newness. Something is renewed. Because every month you have a renewed life force for that month. What's the head of the month? The first day of the month called Rosh Chodesh, the head of the month. So it's in a smaller way, the head of the year is Rosh Hashana. Then that life force on Rosh Hashana is then divided into 12 sections, and it's narrowed down to 12 months. Each month has its head, which receives from Rosh Hashana its life force for the whole month, becomes the head for that month, and then it spreads it to the 30 days. And that's why it's called Chodesh, Rosh Chodesh, the head of the month. The whole Chodesh is a renewed life force for those 30 days. Just like on Rosh Hashana, it's a renewed life force for the whole year. So then it gets detailed lower and lower till it comes to every moment. Because every month it's a renewed life force from nothingness to something, from ex nihilo, from absolute nothingness, and it becomes the creation happens for a month. In other words, on the first day of the month, it receives life force for the whole month. The world, the whole creation is something from nothing, right? There was nothing, and now there was suddenly a word. That happens every year anew on Rosh Hashana, and then every month it happens anew on the first day of the month. The difference between Rosh Hashana and every month is that in every month it's a renewed life force for a detailed month, for 1 month. But Rosh Hashana, on the day of Rosh Hashana, is chachus chayis klolu l'chol Hashana. It's a renewed life force for the whole year. So in every month, it's new, but only for this month. In other words, it receives already what was brought down on Rosh Hashana for that month. But and Rosh Hashana is just like in your brain. The life force of your leg is in your brain first, right? But over there, it's very different than it is as it comes into your foot. Your foot, you begin to walk. It becomes a foot. It becomes a life force of what a foot is. That life force was first in the brain in a more, general way. The same thing, it works with time. God renews the world, a brand new on Rosh Hashana. From absolute nothingness becomes a new world. In other words, because it says on the night before Rosh Hashana, Erev Rosh Hashana, the whole life force of the world is elevated back to its source. And a whole new life force has to come down, because the last year's is finished. So now it's a brand new life force. So that life force is, if that didn't come down, the world would revert to nothingness. So it's ex nihilo. It comes from nothing. Nothing meaning Hashem. It's not physical. It's not. When you say the world was created, something from nothing. What is the something? The physical world. What is nothing? In other words, the nothingness refers to Hashem. Because Hashem is not of the substance of this world. So that happens at Rosh Hashana, and then every month for the 30 days of the month. B'chol Chodesh, and every month is Chadshus Chayis Prati. It is a renewed life force for a detailed month. Rosh Hashana is Chadshus Chayis Klolu l'chol Hashana. But on Rosh Hashana it is a renewed life force for the general life of the whole year. And the Alter Rebbe says over here that in every Rosh Hashana, every year, it's a brand new life force that was never here before. It's a new life force from Hashem. The world this year it was never here before. It's not like the one that was last year, a repeat. It's not a repeat. It's a brand new life force. And very different. What is this renewed life force? The revelation of God's kingdom in the world. Okay, what he's saying over here is like this. What is the theme of Rosh Hashana? We all know. We are busy on Rosh Hashana and davening. What do we talk about during our davening on Rosh Hashana? We refer to God as the King of the world, and we're talking all about His sovereignty, and we ask that He should be the sovereign of the world, and His kingdom should extend over all of creation. But the whole theme is about God's sovereignty, God's kingdom, God's kingship. And what we are asking for is that God should once again reveal His kingdom, His kingship, His rule. The level of Malchus, of Atzilus, into the world in a very detailed and personal way. What this means is, all life force from the world, we learned already many times, comes down to our world via the spiritual worlds. It's lowered and lowered through a tzimtzum, another contraction, till it's lowered, till it can be a life force and a source for our physical world with so many limitations, with so many parameters, with so many, it's so categorized and so compartmentalized and so on. This infinite God can become the life force for such a compartmentalized world, such a detailed, limited world, via this process of evolution, spiritual evolution of the world, through tzimtzum, through one tzimtzum, one contraction, another one, and goes through the four worlds of Atzilus. Right? The four worlds of Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, and Nasiya. It says Atzilus, the first world is pure godliness. It's not considered yet a creation, a separate creation. The second world, Bria, is already considered. What's the word Bria mean? The world is called Bria. What does Bria mean? Creation. Because that's already a separate world. It's separate from Hashem in a way. It's already not pure godliness. It assumes an identity of its own. And in that way because of that we call it creation. Now, the bridge between Atzilus to Bria is the last of the 10 spheres of Atzilus, which is called Malchus, God's kingdom, kingship. Malchus, it says, is that level of every world that funnels the life force of the previous world to upper world to the next lower world. So in a sense, what we're saying is, in order for creation to happen, Hashem has to reveal His life force. He has to extend godly life force into Malchus. And from there it can then be lowered to the next world, that creates the next world, and then the next world, until it becomes our world, the physical world, and everything in it.
So is it done gradually towards Rosh Hashana,
No.
or it's really like a wrap? That's it.
When you
The
say
night
gradually,
before?
you mean it takes a few hours?
Yes, how it's
No.
really... I want to close my eyes.
God is
and I
beyond
can see
time. God is beyond time and space. This happens... It happens
But we have
in...
Erev Rosh Hashana
Yeah.
that starting a new year. So
Yeah.
that already has to come with a new energy.
It does.
So this
So-
energy comes all at once. A year is over,
It comes
and new
like...
energy
and-
starts.
Yes, but it comes when the Yid blows shofar. This is dependent on our actions. You see, in the
Okay.
first few thousand years, God created the world. Oh, let's say the first instance of creation, the first year, when He created the world in 6 days. There were no human beings yet to deserve God creating the world. So He did it on His own because He wanted to do it. But He made it, told the other Marishan, I'm doing the first time I'm doing it for free lunch. There's no more free lunch. If you want the world to continue next year, you're going to have to do something to deserve it, to earn it. That's what it says on Rosh Hashana. Every year has to commit to Hashem and accept upon himself Hashem's kingdom and His rulership, His sovereignty, and His mitzvahs, and do tshuva. It's also that we should be able to, so that Hashem should have a desire that to continue the project, so to say. If no one's going to be ready, no one wants to accept Him, He doesn't want it either. He's not interested in it if you're not interested. So the only way we can draw down this renewed life force for a whole new year is if we step up to the plate. If we do something about it. That's why this pasuk begins with Tiku Bachodesh Shofar. In order for this chodesh, this renewed life force to happen, you have to blow the shofar. You can't just expect Hashem is going to do it like He did it the first time. Especially after the Torah was given. That was totally up to us.
So blowing the shofar is actually
When that happens,
brings down
yes.
the vitality
For the whole
of
life,
youth,
for the whole world.
and we start new energy.
Yeah. And a brand new energy and a new one that was never here before.
We should really use this shofar a lot.
It is. That's why the shofar is a serious thing. Because what happens is on the night before Rosh Hashana, God kind of like decides, I'm not sure I want this anymore. He removes His life force from the world. That's what happens. The year is over. See, it goes back up, so to say. It's removed from the world. And He's not really sure He wants to continue. Why should He? I mean, think about it. What's in it for Him?
It's which expiration
If
date?
you blow your shofar, in other words, what's shofar? Shofar means your acceptance of His sovereignty. See, He didn't doing that, so He said, okay, it's then I want it. If they want me, then I'll come down. I'll create the world for them. But if they don't want me, we'll say, He wants it. What does He have in this? What does He really want? He wants a dwelling place in this lower world. We know that. We learned that many times. But to make a dwelling place, that's up to us. We need to create that. So if we're not ready to do it, He's not interested. So it's up to us to bring down this renewed life force for the coming year. That's what Rosh Hashana is. It's a renewed. That's why it's called chodesh. Tiku Bachodesh. Which month? The verse opens up with the words "blow in the month shofar." What month? Tell us the first month, the second month, the 10th month, the 7th month. Which month? It's called a month. It's called the general month. Why? Because it's a general renewed life force. Chodesh means chodesh. Comes from the word new. Because this day, it's a general renewed life force for the whole world. It's not specified. The first month, the 7th month. It's a newness, it's a renewed life force for all 12 months. For the whole year. And from there it extends more detailed on every Rosh Chodesh for that 30 days and so on. But Rosh Hashana is the head of the whole year. What's the head of space? Doesn't talk about that in this time. Over here he talks about time. He began to say that you have the head of life, the head of time, and the head of space. Israel is the head of space. The life of the whole world comes through Israel first. That's the center, and the central nervous system for all space. Like the head for the whole body. The body is the whole world, and the head is Israel. Okay, but that's not in this mind. Alright, so now in the second chapter, the Alter Rebbe begins to explain the inyan of the Shofar. Shofar, to explain the inyan of the Shofar, and also to explain the meaning of the 10 days of Tshuva. Sh'amra Razal, our sages have said, Al Posuk Dir Shashem B'Yimotzi. The sages have said regarding the verse, they explained the verse in Isaiah. It says of it there, seek out Hashem when He is to be found. When He's around, right? You have to look for Him when you can find Him. When can you find Him? These are the 10 days of Tshuva between Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. He's more found, you can find Him better on those days than any other time in the year. Why are these 10 days the days of Tshuva? What is it about these 10 days? Why? We've grown up to know that these are the 10 days, but why are these the 10 days? What is it about these 10 days that make them at the appropriate time, the propitious time for Tshuva? Then He's found, He's more accessible, more available. Why? So he begins to explain. See, it says in the Pasuk, in Tehillim, your kingdom is the kingdom of the whole world. Peter's meaning, Elamim, what does the worlds mean? All the worlds. Lashon Helam, the world. What is the world? How do you say world in Hebrew? Olam, right?
Olam.
Olam Hazeh. Right? This world. Olam Haba, the other world, right? What does the word Olam mean? It's Lashon He'elim. The word Olam means concealment. He'elim. Right? In Hebrew it means concealment. Shekei, the Mishavis Ha'elim is because before He created the world, Ha'yehu Shmei Bilvad. What was He before the creation, before the 6 days of creation? He and His name, that's it. It was Him alone. Is in order that there should be worlds, creation of the worlds, from nothing to something. He had to conceal and contract and conceal the light of His infinite light, that there should only be what should be revealed? Only His kingdom, His kingship. What does kingship mean? The level of kingship, this malchus that we talked about earlier, is that level that is the level from which all the worlds were created. Why? There's a known general rule, Ein melech b'lei om. A king you can't have a king without a nation. If you're alone on a desert island, and there's no human beings around, nothing there, you can hardly be considered a king. A king means they're subject. Right? So when you say God's king, God is the king, it means automatically that there is something other over which He is a king. So when you say God the king, that means it's already Him as He lowered Himself very, very low, where there's already subjects, there's a whole world, and upon that He's a king. Before the creation of the worlds, could you consider Him a king? King over what? Over Himself?
What about the angels?
No, angels are also created. Angels are also created. When we say before the creation of the world, it was only Him, there were no angels. There was only Him. So could you consider Him a king? What is your king over? Over Himself? The moment you talk about Him as king, you're already talking about a creation of worlds that are now, you can be a king over those worlds. Over those subjects, over angels, over people, over neshamas, whatever, what have you, but something other. So when God created the world, before He created it was only Him. But when He decided to go ahead and create a world, or that there should be worlds, He decided He wants to be a king, so He had to go and create. So the idea of kingdom, therefore Malchus is the source of all the worlds. That's why Malchus is the source of all the worlds. It is that level that connects him with worlds, with creations, with subjects. Shemigili Malchusay Yisborich Levad, from the revelation of his kingdom. From the revelation of that level of God's king, that sphira, that attribute of Malchus, it is through that all the worlds, upper and lower, are created and sustain themselves, and are created, are able to be. Now that's already a major contraction. That's already God as he lowered himself very much. Now this tzimtzum, this contraction, is only from our perspective. We see it as a tzimtzum. We see it as a contraction, because till now it was only him, and now it's us also, and now he's our king, so he lowered himself. We realize that he lowered himself to create us. From his perspective, from the way God looks at it, nothing changed. As it says in the Pasuk, in Tehillim, darkness doesn't make dark for him. Darkness is not dark for him, it's only for us. Light and darkness is all the same for him, because what's darkness? Tzimtzum. Darkness comes from the contraction. From him there is no contraction. So I'll give you an example for this, by the way. What is a contraction? Like a teacher teaches a student something, a deep philosophical concept, In order for the teacher to be able to pass on the information to his student that's just a much lower level than him, he has to use parables. He has to contract the idea that's in his mind, that lofty idea, to bring it down to the level of the student. How do you do that? So you use parables and examples, all kinds of things. You contract, you conceal the depth of the idea in something more applicable to the child, to the student. Correct? Now, this for the student, when he hears a parable about a king or something, sometimes you use parables of kings. So to him, the student sees that, he realizes that the idea of the teacher is completely contracted. But from the teacher's perspective, was anything contracted? In the parable, he sees the whole depth of the idea. For the teacher, nothing was contracted. It was contracted, but it's not really changed. Nothing was really hidden for the teacher. You understand? Mm-hmm. So it's only for the student's perspective. But from the teacher's perspective, nothing has changed. You are the first the way you were before creation and after creation. It's all the same. Because all the levels, all the worlds are as naught. He's considered the king, which was just like it was. He's the king just like before creation, as he is after creation. Even though now there's a level of kingdom, which means the subject, to him it's just like it was before. He's alone just like he was before. And the fact that the level of Malchus was drawn from him, and now there's a kingdom with a whole subjects and a whole creation. It's the idea behind that is like the verse in Tehillim, Hashem, the king, Hashem Molech Geus Lavish. He enclosed himself in this level of kingdom. It's already a lowering of himself. It's just a outer garment for Hashem. Shenislabish Bilvush Geus. He enclosed himself in a garment of, what does Geus mean? Elevation. Kingdom. A king is an elevated state, right? What is a king? A king is much higher than everyone else. This higher is already for him an enclosement it's lower. They should be called a king. This was his desire. That's what he wanted. To conceal and to cover the infinite light of Hashem himself. In order that there should be creation of worlds, so through the lowering and the spiritual chain-like evolution of one level after the next and so on. Until there should be a physical world, this lower physical world, where the place where people can then create, people can be created in order to create for him a dwelling by transforming from darkness into light. Taking this physical world, which is so dark, so concealed, God is not present at all in a revealed state. We should take that and reveal him here. That was what he wanted. And that the light that comes as a result of us transforming the darkness into light will be much greater than it could ever have been, if not for this lowering and going through this process. So for God, there's a benefit here. What's the benefit? A light that is created by man through darkness is much greater than any light that was there prior to creation at all. There's something powerful about such holiness. What is light? He's talking about a very holiness. When a Yid takes a physical table that could be dark, that could be used for not negative, and he uses it for Torah and for mitzvahs and transforms the whole physical world around him into light, into godliness, that to Hashem is the greatest pleasure. That's what he wanted. So for that he went and contracted himself and lowered himself and created this, and clothed himself in the level of Malchus, which is elevated from the world, and then created subjects and the whole creation in order for this to happen. But it's all a lowering of himself. Malchus is already the lowering of himself. So before the creating of the world, there was only him. When he decided to create the world, there was already a whole, Stalshus, a whole evolution of worlds and levels, and then Malchus finally, which then makes it possible for there to be a physical world, and all the spiritual worlds. Subjects other than him. Creations outside of him, or independent of him, at least from the way we see it. We look separate. This is all in order there should be separateness, and that we should take these separate entities and reunite them with Hashem through divine service. And what is the greatness of this light that emerges from the darkness, which is what God wanted? That's what he wanted. That's what God's will is. It's not something we can understand why he wants this.
Right. So we just have to accept it.
Yeah, that's his taiva, that's his pleasure, that's what he wants. It's called in the Zohar Bereishur Menusa de Malka, which means in the beginning of God's will. That's what he wanted.
It's like he wants us first to invite him. He's not coming without invitation.
He did it. He created it. Yeah, he didn't ask us.
Right. But on the other hand, he created us. He didn't ask us. But on the other hand, every year, he's not coming back unless there is invitation.
That's what he's going to say now, in the 3rd chapter.
Okay.
Look what he says.
But there is almost like a paradox. So he created, then he wants invitation.
Obviously, he created the first time through his kindness.
He punishes us if we don't go his way.
Right.
But on the other hand, he said, I'm waiting for your invitation. I'm not so forceful. I want to be invited. And
He's standing on ceremony.
What do you mean I'm not so full? In other words, look what he said. Let's read it in Alter Rebbe's words. Next chapter. It's not in the beginning of the creation of the worlds. Next page.
I'm going to sit next to you again.
In the beginning of the creation of the world, it was when he wanted it. It was a free kindness. It wasn't something anyone earned, because there was no one. There was nothing. Like it says in the Pasuk Yamarti, Eilim Chesed Yibon. It says in the Tehillim, in the Pasuk in Tehillim, God said, the world, kindness built. God's kindness. There was nothing else that elicited this.
Okay.
Pure His kindness. But from then on, in order to draw God's will to go for another year, it's already dependent on the actions of the human beings. When is the time to draw that will? Rosh Hashana. It's on Rosh Hashana. That's the time when the renewed life force, when the previous year's life force is finished. So you have to draw now a new life force for the next year. So that happens on Rosh Hashana. Because that which was drawn, the life that was drawn last Rosh Hashana, comes to an end, is removed at the beginning of the new Rosh Hashana, at the end of the last year, which is the night before. That is why also Rosh Hashana is the Day of Judgment. God has to now judge it. You want me, you don't want me, you deserve me, you don't deserve. Should I go for another year, should I not? Then God judges man for all his deeds, or what passed, for all the deeds that passed this past year. Because in order for God, you have to understand, for God to draw himself down and contract himself and do all this project, there's a lot of opposition to it. There's a lot of opposition. There's an accusing game. They say it's not worth it. Why are you doing it? They don't deserve it. If man is worthy of it, is man worthy of Hashem drawing down his life force through Malchus in this whole project? If they come we think about the past year, have we lived up to our responsibilities? We threw off the yoke of heaven in this past 12 months. There's some people that do not accept upon themselves the yoke of heaven with love and with will. Sometimes, some people do it occasionally, not all the time. He remembers that there's Hashem, that there's a God. Some people remember it once in a while, not all the time. But the rest of the time, he's busy with his own things. Every person knows his life and knows how much he's living up to his responsibilities. And certainly there are people even that are not even careful with doing the mitzvahs the way they shouldn't, doing this and God forbid, violating sins. So it's not only they don't remember that God is the king, they even violate his will. Each person according to his level. Everyone knows how many times he sinned, how many mitzvahs he missed, and so on. It's impossible to draw God's will for a new creation, for a new life force, for a whole year. If people down there are going to throw off the yoke of heaven, why should he want? Why would he do it? He wants to be a king over us, but if you don't want him, you're going to throw off the kingdom of heaven off your shoulders. You're going to throw off the yoke, then you don't want him. So why should he want it? And if people are not going to accept upon themselves God's kingdom with wanting, with will, with joy, with pleasure, then he certainly won't want it. So there's a lot of opposition on those few crucial hours of Rosh Hashana, the beginning of Rosh Hashana. Should you do it or not? So we have to look. Do man deserve it? So that's where judgment comes in. That's why it's the Day of Judgment. El Shalzen Nemar, we'll just finish this chapter. But it's upon this that the pasuk says, Nemar Seimech Hashem L'chol HaNeiflim Liis Einich Kei Le'lechi Yisaberu. The pasuk says, we say it in Ashrei, right? Seimech Hashem L'chol HaNeiflim. God supports all those that fall. Right? Because what does it say in the pasuk? Malchuscha Malchus Kol Elamim. Your kingdom is the kingdom of all the worlds. And your rulership is for every generation. What's the very next pasuk? Seimech Hashem L'chol HaNeiflim. You support all those that fall. Because when you think about it, why should God want to be the king? We just got through saying that we don't even maybe deserve it. Why should he want it? So if you take a look at our actions, we may be over with. But there's where God's kindness comes in. He supports all the fallen ones. Those that fall, meaning fall spiritually. because we look to Him. At the end of the day, we do look to Him. God helps us and supports us that even those that fell, meaning fell spiritually, and they threw off the yoke of heaven, that they also should want to have Him, that they should also want Him once again in their life, that they should seek Him. Look what he says. It's upon this that it says, Hashem supports all those who fall. So that all the eyes of all should seek Him and want Him. That the desire of every person should be that Hashem should shine in his heart. That's what God makes, that you should want Him. And to accept upon ourselves the yoke of heaven with love and with will. And through this, the next pasuk in that same Ashrei is Pesach Es Yadecha Masbir L'chol Chayros. He opens up his hands and he satiates all with life, all the living willingly. What does it mean he opens his hand? That pasuk refers to Hashem wanting to extend His creative life force into Malchus to create the world again. Okay, you know what we'll do? We'll continue this. It's already 9 o'clock, and there he goes into something that I need to explain a little bit. So I will leave it over here, and we'll continue next week.